How's it going, everybody? Welcome to For the Culture podcast through Sacred Heart University Multicultural Center. My name is Rob Johnson. I'm joined here by Miss Michelle Blake Wilson.
You
Right.
got it.
All right. Cool. I didn't want to mess that up off
it.
off the bat.
It's all good. It's all good. Yes, I know it's a lot of names,
No,
but
it's all
us
good.
women,
Mhm.
develop our reputation long before we're married. So I had to hold on to that. That Blake means a lot to me.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'm extremely happy, and honestly grateful for you to be here. Obviously, I spoke with Professor Miller and heard a lot about your organization, about your experience, and for this podcast, like I said, prior to us starting,
Mhm.
we really like to focus on diversity, equity, inclusion, in higher ed spaces. But I think for our viewers out there, especially students, I want to give them a snapshot of what they could be at some point in time, hopefully, right, through your experiences. So, if you don't mind, just giving, I guess, the viewers, myself, a little bit of background about where you're from, what your current profession is, and just who Michelle Blake Wilson is.
Oh man, I don't know if we
I
have
know that's
enough
a broad. I
time.
know that's a
That's right,
broad.
because we're such complex people. But
Absolutely.
Michelle is a born and raised New Yorker. Played tennis all my life. Actually, spent some time up here in Fairfield, Connecticut.
Okay.
Our family um, played and lived in Fairfield for a couple of years.
Wow.
So
Okay.
I remember scuttling around the campus a little bit when I was younger.
Mm-hmm.
But played tennis all my life. Was an equestrian, an
Okay.
accomplished equestrian before that was ever a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Went to college, went to Hampton University. So I'm very, very proud of my HBCU roots. So having a conversation around diversity, equity, and inclusion,
Mm-hmm.
that's my lived experience.
Mm-hmm.
So can't wait to delve into that and the name for the culture. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's just synonymous with HBCUs. It's all about the culture.
Mm-hmm.
But played tennis at Hampton for a bit, went into the world of fashion, then went back to business school and been in the sports space ever since. So, one of the things that I always talk about to mentees and as I speak with students, it's always like your path is going to be surreptitious.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody has a linear path except for maybe like a doctor because they have to do like pre med, like it's
Mm-hmm.
very systematic. But you talk to most professionals, and when you really start to peel back the layers, you
Yep.
realize like they wound up someplace that was completely out of left
Mm-hmm.
field.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's, I guess, my first pearl that I will
Mm-hmm.
drop is just like, don't worry, be present in
Yep.
your process and
Absolutely.
let it see where it unfolds.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, um, stood in 2019. I was 2020. Excuse me. I was at Viacom, but had always wanted to sort of do my own thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I started my own experiential company. I was going to go out on my own and do my own thing, and sure enough, who does experiences during a COVID,
Mm-hmm.
during a global pandemic when there are no events?
Absolutely.
So just had to pivot and
Mm-hmm.
co-founded Oynx with a really good friend that was in the space, but quickly realized it needed to be authentic, it
Yep.
needed to be organic,
Yep.
and so I took over the reins
Yep.
then, and it's been a whirlwind ever since.
And so that's where I was headed next with my
Yeah.
next question. I had the opportunity to read a little bit about Empower Onyx, right? And what y'all are embarking on, on this journey for young women. Can you kind of speak to that, especially to the, in the multicultural center? We have a lot of young women in the multicultural center primarily. Most of I think our university is 60-40 female to male, right? The ratio, right? So, can we kind of get a snapshot as to what y'all do, what your mission is, and what drove you to, aside from wanting something new, I guess from an inclusion perspective, what drove you to taking that step to actually getting that up and running?
Sure. Wow. being a Black woman that has been in business for a number of years, 20 plus years in large corporate environments, sometimes being the only one in the room, and I know many of, my fellow sisters, as we say, can understand that. It just continued to pain me that we weren't in charge of our own story.
Yeah.
And that there were so many opportunities, career opportunities, that we just don't even know about. And coming from a family that has been engaged in sports at all levels, to the highest level of professional sports, and being someone who worked in sports, it just kept nagging at me. We need to first reclaim our story, because no one's going to do it justice except for us. But we have to give young girls, and particularly Black girls, an opportunity to see themselves in every space.
Absolutely.
Like, I think the true definition of inclusion is when it's completely diverse, that you don't even recognize the diversity, because it goes without saying.
It's normal.
Exactly. However, standing in 2020, we all recognize the need to be specifically intentional around telling that story. We have to tell it in a very deep, rich, and textured way, so that we elevate everyone's understanding of the experience, and then we can move to full inclusion.
Absolutely.
Because us Black girls and women need to be seen, need to be validated. We've all just seen what has transpired in the last month or so for Black women on the highest levels. But I felt it was extremely important for us to be the ones telling the story. So Empower Oynx is Black women in sports telling the story of Black women in sports. And that those conversations that we have, you're not going to find anywhere else, because the way in which, we relate, we understand the nuances, and we understand the experiences in a way that are very different than any other commentator. Sitting down talking, to true diversity professionals and stuff like that. It's just a different level of understanding.
And there's an authenticity there that
gotta be.
Yeah.
Straight up gotta be. Because
if
it's not, we're not going to receive it.
And we can smell it from a mile away.
Oh, my goodness. Absolutely.
And no, that's very real. For the month of March, Women's History Month. So in the Multicultural Center, we have this thing called Wisdom Wednesdays, where we talk about personal development, character development, and students having that foundation, right? Because college can be very superficial, right? It can be very...
it could be a lot of things.
Yeah. It's like, where's the next...
If you're doing it right.
If you're doing it right. And even if you're doing it wrong, because I was doing it wrong a lot of the time too, right? And I always admit that to my students. And we, in one of the motivation... So we'll play a motivational video. Students will take notes. And I decided to, focus on Serena Williams' stories. And one of the things that came up in terms of the reason why, for me personally, is showing her story. We talk about the most legendary athletes of our time and this and that. We hear Michael Jordan, Tom Brady, LeBron James, all these men. And it's like, and I sat back and I'm like, why are we not talking about what Serena's doing year in and year out for how many years? Literally, and I'll be 28 next month. For as long as I can remember, I've always
been at the top of her game.
Always heard about Serena's level of excellence in her sport. So why don't we talk about that more often? Why don't we highlight that? Why don't we recognize that in our day-to-day? You know what I mean?
Existent, absolutely. So we have a guiding saying. It's from Pluto. Those who tell the story rule the society. And so for us, when you look at the landscape, less than 9.4% of all broadcasters were diverse. And when I say diverse, I mean that doesn't even include.
I know what you mean.
You know what I mean? And so I don't even know if there's a language around how to properly articulate what Serena and many others like her were able to do, and what they're doing, you know, in their chosen sport. And so that's what Empower Onyx is really trying to do, is like, we're trying to tell the stories, but also educate and give the broader community language to understand these women and the amazing things that they do. And Serena is one example, but there are so many champion women out there that are doing amazing, phenomenal things on the business side that aren't they don't get recognition. They're not athletes. They're not. So Empower Onyx goal is we don't cover stats, performance, or scores. We're really about telling this, as I said previously, this texture, this rich story of these women, because that's where we think the pearls lie, and where, you know, that will truly inspire young ladies to engage. Because for us, we do know that young girls that are that participate in sport, and the longer they're in the pipeline, have greater success, long-term success in whatever they do, whether it's on the field or off the field. And so we want young ladies, we want to inspire young ladies to keep participating, and so helping the men tell the story. Let's just say that.
And it's sad that you know, it's in you know, I always discuss, because I have immense amount of privilege, just in general, right? Like, and I'm aware of that, and I always ask the question of like, how, in what ways can I elevate, you know, someone else's voice, where I, you know, where I have privilege, clearly, right? So
likewise,
what are some,
I understand.
what can people do? But let me not sugarcoat. What can men do to better assist, amplify, get the word out, and be accomplices to this work? I don't like to use the word ally anymore. I'm sure a lot of people have started to notice that.
No, I'm leaning into it.
Yeah,
we use it a lot, all the time, and in the context of men, in the context of people that sit outside of our diverse community. I mean, my partner is a white man, who is learning every day, but has decided to stand firmly alongside of this Black woman to bring this platform forward.
Absolutely.
I think, you know, we need those voices. We need, you know, we need men to tell our stories, because right now that's who's in control. So I don't have a problem with allyship. I don't have a problem with advocacy. I don't care what you call it. But elevate and amplify and empower those women that you know are doing it. And there are men out there every day who are, you know, taking up the charge.
And what are some of the most unique forms of advocacy that you've seen so far, I guess, by men or by anybody really outside of the community? Because I feel like, not that it has to be unique, but I think a lot of people think that they either have to reinvent the wheel, they got to do something super special, or this I don't know, just this big it has
monumental
to be
gestures.
Thank you.
Yeah, no.
So no, you know what I mean?
No,
and it's usually the small things.
It's always the small things.
Okay.
So for us, we really believe it is the small things. It could be as simple as picking up the phone to call a friend that you played lacrosse with or went to school with, that it would take that woman 5 months, 6 months, a year to get just that phone call. You were able to do it in 1 minute. So it's really never the bigger things. It's giving that advice to that woman, listening, sometimes just listening to the experiences of women and diverse women is helpful. So I mean, if you can spare 5 minutes, that's something that can have a huge impact. And in that 5 minutes, you may learn something and figure out another way to serve either that specific woman or women in general, or at least, when it comes across your desk and when it's time for you to make that decision, you have a different voice in your head.
Absolutely. So what's been one of the most maybe fulfilling things that has happened in the short time that Empower Onyx has been around? Like, is there a highlight moment so far? Has there been a few things? I don't, you know what I mean? Like, what are, like, in seeing your work come to life? What has been one of those moments for you that, I mean, I guess you would like to share with the world, or share with anybody?
All right, I'll do it in twofold.
No, yeah, however.
So the one that's nearest and dearest to my heart, the highlight, I have a 14-year-old daughter, and she was like, "Mommy, you're dope." I was like, boom, I'm done.
I did it.
I did it. To get a 14-year-old to look at their mom as cool.
Especially this generation. I know. They are hard. I thought we were a hard sell. They're a hard sell.
They are very much a hard sell. So when, she started to see the work that we were doing, she was really excited about it. So that was, you know what, Michelle, you did well. I think professionally, I guess when Venus actually reached out to us to engage in one of our programs, which to me was like, whoa, okay, we're on her radar.
Yeah.
That was a day, and then you kept going, and we got in front of Jamel Hill, and now we had these amazing Black women are now really champion Empower Onyx and a part of our world. And then I think there's a third one that was really brought tears to our eyes because it brought tears to her eyes. We profiled a woman who had been within collegiate sports for 25 plus years. And as we were sitting down, with our writers, and it's a whole process, as you know, when you're getting ready for an interview. And she did her interview, and at the end of it, she started welling up. And she said, "Nobody has ever stopped to tell my story. And I've been in sports for 25 plus years." And she felt so seen and validated and appreciated for her journey. And I think that just really sticks with me. As an entrepreneur, there's dark days. Dark days. But knowing that, the work that we're doing has an impact and is having a tangible impact on people's lives is what keeps me going.
Absolutely. So what are some, wild dreams, goals, aspirations for Empower Onyx, and I guess even yourself, that, who knows, maybe 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the line as you're building this thing out? Like, what are some things that maybe hopefully we can manifest it right here on this podcast?
Ooh, I love it.
You know what I mean? What are some things that have been swirling in your mind in terms of, like, this is my benchmark, this is my, or, these are potential benchmarks for myself or goals that I have?
Sure. Oh, gosh. Okay, that's a very layered question. So I'm going to try to keep it as condensed as possible. So from a social impact standpoint, if we can increase the pipeline of young ladies engaged in sport, what we found is a lot of what we do is driven by insights. So we know there's a need for a platform like Empower Onyx, but we want to have real, tangible impact. And so through our research, we find that young Black girls are introduced to sports later than other groups, and they come out of the pipeline a lot earlier. So you figure you have between 6 and 11, 6 and 12. We're really trying to elongate that. We would really want to get that number up to 16, 17, 18, at least getting them to college. And so we have many ideas on how to do it, grassroots programming, partnering with big brands to bring information forward, to help be a resource to those young Black girls that are on that journey to through athletics, because there's a lot of other systemic barriers that they encounter. Really looking at a landscape of Black girls that are in sport being represented well, where we don't have some of the current issues anymore, because now we know that there needs to be a Black photographer on the shoot to ensure that Black bodies are lit correctly. You know, we need to know, we have Black makeup artists. We'll have, this understanding that different doesn't mean less than. It just means different, and let's celebrate and embrace it. So that's what we want. We want that representation to be, holistic. For the platform, I mean, our goal, I say it, I'm trying to be the essence of sports. All about, the official destination of everything, lifestyle and sport. And continue to tell these like deep cultural stories, because I feel like there's so much we can talk about. So I think that's where I would think. Absolutely. Yeah, and then us in movies, and I mean, there's a whole lot.
Taking I got the next level. Yeah. Oh, well, I mean, that's I'm a firm believer of speaking it into existence.
Likewise. So I just want to hop in here, because before we got on air, I was saying, oh man, I forgot my notebook. And you talk about speaking it into existence. Whenever I talk about Empower Oynx, I tell this story because we're all at home during the pandemic, and who wasn't watching the home edit? I was all about it. My type A really kicked in. But at home, cleaning out a bag, I found this notebook. And yes, I'm older than many probably of your listeners right now. And I came through business school at a time where, we had cell phones, but they weren't as useful as they are now. So you carried around a notebook. And I was going through a bag, and I found a little pink notebook, and that was it was the thing that I carried in my pocketbook as I was going back and forth to Columbia. And when ideas would pop up, and I opened it up, and on the first page it said foundations. It said start a foundation to empower girls through the platform of sport.
Oh, I love that. I'm sorry. I just got all like my, when I get this grin, I get a heart. It's called a heart smile.
Yes.
I know
it was 20 years. The book itself was over 20 years old. I went to business school in 2002. Take that full circle to standing in this moment, working alongside my partner. It was a sign. Michelle, this is your moment. This is exactly the moment you've been preparing for your whole life. So I truly believe that.
So it's so funny you say that, because I tell my students all the time, I'm like, when we do our the Wisdom Wednesdays that I was mentioning to you earlier, I tell them to write it down. I say people forget, paper remembers. That's not my quote, by the way, but that's, I got that from a motivational speaker. And it's so funny how, again, I even go through some of my college notes or grad school notes and stuff like that, and I'm just like, oh, you know what I mean? Like, I was like, I remember when I thought of this idea, you know what I mean? And seeing it come to life or to fruition is one of the most fulfilling things I could ever, like, people don't get it. When you're young, you don't get it. You just don't understand, because when you have that moment, it is one of the most fulfilling moments. And it got you going clearly, right?
Absolutely. And this is the second time it happened. Which is crazy, because it happened to me in undergrad. So I was journaling. I'm at Hampton. Everyone. I mean, it was woke before being woke. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, before the term.
Yeah, before the term. And so I was, writing, and I had. I started my professional career, back to my original point about it being this surreptitious path. I was in fashion, and I started on 7th Avenue at 15.
Mm-hmm.
And so going into Hampton, I wrote, I wanted to be, a buyer
Okay.
on 7th Avenue. Like once I graduated school, I knew I wanted to go into fashion.
Mm-hmm.
And I wrote it down in my book.
Mm-hmm.
Graduation, 4 years later,
Mm-hmm.
I was early accepted
Mm-hmm.
into Bloomingdale's Buyers Training Program,
Wow.
which at the time, and I think it may still be like the Harvard of buying because there's,
Mm-hmm.
all this business and math that goes,
Mm-hmm.
there's retail math, there's all this stuff besides just having, an eye for trend.
Mm-hmm.
And I manifested it.
Yeah.
And so it just became this thing that I held on to because I knew it had worked.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I'm here. This is the second go around.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm going to write down too
Mm-hmm.
that I'm like as rich as Oprah so that in 20 more years that one comes to pass, right?
I'm with you on that one because trust me, it's happened to me on different occasions in life. From undergrad to now, and I'm just like, wow, like it's funny how life comes full circle at you in that way. So what is, I guess, a bit of advice or words of encouragement for, and obviously you went to an HBCU, so your undergraduate experience was different from that of some of the students that I work with, but I think that you know being I guess a black woman in college, like what is some advice that you would give to some of the students out there, maybe having imposter syndrome, maybe second guessing themselves, maybe not having this understanding of their ability to manifest or speak things into existence. Because I mean, it just probably sounds redundant coming from me every
Right.
time I say it. So, and they all look at me as if I'm like their dad or some or older brother
Right.
or something like that. First of all, y'all not even. I'm not even 10 years older than y'all.
Oh, don't get me started because.
So what, you know what I mean? So what would you say to those students? Like, what would you say to those young women on college campuses out there across the country that face those, because they feel it, they experience
Absolutely.
it in classes, in the residence halls, in the cafeterias, at every step of their journey during college, So what words of encouragement would you give to them?
You're okay. To use Cory Booker's term, we see you. We see your experience. We see your expertise. I would say just be authentic to yourself. Embrace your experience. It is your lived experience. And allow yourself to be present, to understand those moments. You're going to be okay. And there is a community of other women and that will support you. Reach up if you need that assistance. Help your sister out. Reach next to you. Reach down. Reach all the way around. We have to collaborate and come together and support each other. Absolutely. And so I would just say, everyone's got their girl squad. That matters. Mentors matter. Your family matters.
Absolutely.
And your faith matters. I mean, I'm very much a person of faith. Walk through faith.
We here. I know exactly what you're saying. Some people like to half step on that. But
that goes to help dispel some of the negative experience you might have, the negative self-talk you might have, and that imposter syndrome. Because I faced it, but it was with my spiritual journey that I was able to overcome it and walk boldly in those frightful situations. I hate talking, but I'm sitting here talking to you right now. So,
well, Michelle, thank you so much for taking the time. I know this was kind of like a last minute, right before.
It's fine. No, thank you. And wherever I can be a resource to you when you're, Wisdom Wednesdays and stuff like that.
Yes, that's just one of the small events we do. But the Multicultural Center here, we started September 2020, so. A lot changed, right? As you can see, and we're really in the infancy of growing this thing out, and the podcast is just another form to get out there to the world and to the community, here at Sacred Heart and beyond, and spread these messages and educate people, because education is really needed, both on and off of our campus. So I really, really do appreciate you taking the time today. And yes, thank you so much. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you for having us. Yeah, wherever we can
Mhm.
be of help,
And
just let us know.
where can the people find you? I guess where can everybody find you?
Sure. I mean, you can follow us on Empower Onyx. We have empoweronyx.com.
Mm-hmm.
We have programming on
Mm-hmm. Okay.
sportsillustrated.com. So you can put in Elevate or Empowered Onyx. We're on all social platforms.
Okay.
Just check us out.
All right, cool. Well,
Thank
thank you so
you.
much, Michelle. All right, folks, appreciate you. We will see you on the next episode. Again, don't forget to follow our Instagram at shoe underscore multicultural center underscore, and we'll see you next episode. Peace.
Deuce.